Hey everyone! Today we're diving into two of the most powerful and often destructive emotions that every single one of us knows well: anger and disappointment. Have you ever felt these emotions surge through you, making you say or do things you later regret? Maybe it was the frustration of injustice at work, rage at a reckless driver, or deep disappointment from your own mistakes. These feelings, like wild waves, can crash over us, causing us to lose control, damage relationships, and even harm our own well-being. We yell, we throw things, we blame others, and then, when the storm passes, we're left with guilt and exhaustion. But what if there was a way not to suppress these emotions, not to bury them deep inside, but to transform them into a source of strength, wisdom, and effective decisions? What if you could use these powerful, seemingly negative feelings as guiding beacons pointing the way to personal growth and inner calm? That's exactly what we'll talk about today, drawing on the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that offers not just advice, but a complete system for living. Get ready to learn how to stop being a prisoner to your feelings and start acting consciously, turning every burst of anger or sting of disappointment into an opportunity for your inner transformation. Stoicism isn't about having a stone face, suppressing feelings, or being emotionless. Absolutely not. That's one of the biggest misconceptions about Stoicism. On the contrary, this philosophy teaches us not to hide our emotions, but to understand them, to investigate their sources, to analyze their nature, and most importantly, to use reason to prevent them from controlling us. Ancient Stoics, such as Seneca, who dedicated an entire treatise to the subject of anger, analyzing its nature, and offering methods for combating it. And Epictetus, former slave whose lessons on freedom and self-control were born from the harshest life trials, consistently taught that our suffering doesn't come from the events themselves, but from our interpretation of those events. In other words, anger and disappointment aren't external forces attacking us or something someone sends our way. No, at their core, they are the result of our own internal judgments, beliefs, and very often our unrealistic expectations about how the world should operate or how other people should behave. Understanding this fundamental principle that your emotion originates within you, not externally, is the very first and most powerful step towards gaining true emotional freedom and control over your inner world. So, how does Stoicism help us not just cope with anger and disappointment, but transform them into a driving force, a source of inner strength? The first and most fundamental key: recognize your judgments.
Remember what the Stoics said about?
The dichotomy of control, the idea that there are things we can control: our thoughts, reactions, judgments, and things we cannot: others' actions, external events. Anger and disappointment, almost 100% of the time, arise when we cling to the judgment that something should have been different than it is, or when we are convinced that we have been unfairly wronged, or that the world isn't meeting our expectations. For instance, imagine a situation. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you instantly feel your temper flare, perhaps even starting to yell or honk. Your internal judgment in that moment is, they shouldn't have done that. It's unfair, dangerous, and unacceptable. Or consider another example. You've put months of effort into an important project, but it failed due to reasons beyond your control, and you feel deep disappointment turning into fury at fate's unfairness. Your judgment: this shouldn't have happened. It's unjust to me and my efforts. Stoic, in the same situation, would say, I cannot control other people's actions, their carelessness on the road, their decisions. I cannot control the outcome of all events, as there's an element of chance in the world, but I can absolutely control my judgment of that event and my reaction to it. Simply realizing that it's your internal judgment, your interpretation, not the external event itself, that is the true cause of this turbulent emotion, gives you immense, almost limitless power over the situation. It's not the event that makes you angry, it's your decision to be angry about that event. The second key: practice detachment or objective representation. This is a powerful mental technique. When strong, overwhelming emotion seize you, try to step back as if you were an impartial observer, and look at the situation as objectively as possible, without emotional coloring, without your personal judgments and evaluations. The great Roman emperor and Stoic Marcus Aurelius in his Meditations constantly advised describing things as they truly are, reducing them to their basic, pure facts without adding emotional adjectives or labels. For example, instead of internally screaming, "This awful colleague is deliberately ignoring me. They hate me," to try to simply formulate, "The colleague didn't respond to my message. They are busy," or "They simply forgot." That's a fact. My thoughts about their intentions, about them being awful or hating me. Those are my own judgments, my interpretations that I'm imposing on a neutral fact. Or are you experiencing deep disappointment because a long-awaited goal hasn't been achieved? An inner criticism whispers, "I'm a failure. Nothing works out for me. I'm incapable." The Stoic approach suggests reframing this. This specific attempt didn't yield the desired result. What can I learn from this experience? What data did I gain for next time? This practice helps to depersonalize the problem, stripping it of the destructive emotional charge we ourselves give it, allows you to see the situation more clearly, without the fog of anger or disappointment, and most importantly, to shift the focus from a helpless reaction to constructive analysis and an opportunity for growth. The third key, transform emotion into action or wise inaction. Stoics, contrary to popular belief, did not consider emotions to be entirely useless. They believed that emotions, even powerful ones like anger and disappointment, can be valuable. If used as a signal for reasoned action, anger, for example, can be an important signal that your personal boundaries have been violated, that something unjust has occurred, or that something you value needs protection. Disappointment, in turn, can be a signal that your expectations were unrealistic, that your current strategy isn't working, or that it's time to reevaluate your goals. But it's critically important not to get stuck in the emotion itself, not to drown in it, but to immediately ask yourself a key question. What can I do with this feeling right now? What is reasonable and constructive to undertake? This means active intervention. For example, calmly and clearly stating your boundaries, seeking information to understand the situation, or changing your approach to a task. Sometimes it means changing your perspective, accepting the situation. And sometimes, and this is very important, it means wise inaction, simply accepting what cannot be changed and focusing on the next step. On what is within your sphere of control? If anger or disappointment push you towards destructive, impulsive actions, yelling at someone, blaming everyone around you, sabotaging work, giving up at the first sign of difficulty, Stoicism unequivocally advises to refrain. Refraining from such impulsive, irrational reactions is not suppression, but a manifestation of true strength, self-control, and rational thought. It is a conscious choice not to be a puppet of your passions. Let's move to practice. Theory is, of course, wonderful, but Stoicism, above all, is a philosophy of action, requiring daily self-work, like building a muscle. How do you integrate these powerful principles into your daily life so they become second nature? Here are a few simple, yet incredibly effective exercises you can start using today. Exercise 1. The Stoic pause moments of mindfulness and motion. This is your immediate override button for automatic reactions. The moment you feel a strong emotion engulfing you, anger, irritation, frustration, resentment, disappointment, do not react immediately. Instead, take a physical or mental pause. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. 8. This brief physiological reset gives you a few precious seconds. Then, before the emotion gains full power, ask yourself 3 key questions. What am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this? What is my judgment that triggered this emotion? What can and cannot I control in this specific situation? And what reasonable, constructive action can I take? Or, conversely, what action should I refrain from? This short pause, even just 10 to 15 seconds, is your reliable shield against impulsive, destructive reactions. It shifts you from reptilian brain mode to rational thinking mode. Exercise 2. Reframing judgments. This is an exercise you can practice constantly. As soon as you catch yourself in a burst of anger or a sting of disappointment, Once you realize that your emotion is caused by a judgment, try to consciously reframe that judgment. For example, instead of thinking, "My boss is absolutely unfair to me. He underestimates me," try to reframe, "My boss made a decision that I don't like, and that perhaps doesn't consider all my efforts. This is his decision, not a fact about my worth. I have a choice in how I react to this. To get angry or to calmly discuss the situation, make a decision, look for opportunities." This powerfully shifts the focus from blaming external circumstances to your personal control over your reaction and choice of action, granting you internal autonomy. Exercise 3. Premeditating response. If you know a situation is coming that could potentially trigger anger or disappointment, for example, a difficult conversation with a client, a confrontational colleague, or awaiting an important but possibly negative outcome, think through your stoic response in advance. This is like a mental rehearsal. If he or she says this, instead of getting angry or offended, I will calmly reply, "I understand your point of view. Let's look at this from another perspective," or I will take that into consideration. If the outcome is negative, I won't blame myself, but I'll analyze what can be improved. This allows you to be mentally prepared, not caught off guard. You decide in advance how you will react, stripping impulsive emotions of their power. Friends, managing anger and disappointment isn't about becoming an emotionless robot. That's not the goal of Stoicism. On the contrary, it's about becoming free from the tyranny of these emotions, so they don't toss you around like a boat in a storm. It's about using them as beacons for growth, as signals indicating the need for self-reflection or a change in strategy, rather than as anchors pulling you down into despair or aggression. Stoicism gives you not just isolated advice, but a complete map to this inner freedom. It teaches you to be the captain of your ship, not a passenger being thrown by the waves. Start applying these simple, yet incredibly powerful principles today. Even small steps, daily practice, will yield enormous fruits. You'll notice how your life becomes calmer, your reactions wiser, and your relationships with yourself and the world around you more harmonious. If this video resonated with you, if it offered even a glimmer of hope or a new perspective for navigating your professional world, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more insights into practical wisdom, and share it with friends, colleagues, family members, anyone you think could also benefit from this emotional armor and map to inner freedom. Let me know in the comments below, which of these Stoic approaches or exercises will you try applying first to manage anger or disappointment in your life? I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts and experiences. See you in the next video. Live wisely and act consciously, turning every emotion into a step towards your best self.